Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the conferences of Portugal Makes Sense. Today's panel will address the topic, Why Portugal and Why Germany? Bilateral investment cases in industry. Technological differentiation, access to market and talented people are the key forces driving investment into Portugal and into Germany. Here, we will be looking at the rationale behind these decisions. I will now hand over to our moderator, Hans-Joachim Böhner, the Executive Director of the German Portuguese Chamber of Industry and Commerce.
Good afternoon, everybody, for this session on why Portugal, why Germany, the bilateral investment cases in industry. And industry in this case is also services, because services has become a very important industry lately. Welcome everybody on the audience, especially German Ambassador to Portugal, Dr. Martin Ney, also the President of the German Chamber, Markus Kemper, and all here on the stage. ICEP Portugal Global President Luis Castro Enriquez. ICEP is the Portuguese investment agency. The German investment agency is represented by Dr. Robert Herrmann, CEO of GIE. Then we have 4 companies, investors, either in Portugal or in Germany. Next to me, Miguel Leixenring. Miguel Leixenring is the CEO of Schmitt & Söhne Elevators in Portugal. Next to me, on the right side, is Nuno Fernandes. He is the CEO of Omnidea RCG GmbH. And then comes Pedro Oliveira, solution engineer at Critical Manufacturing. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Mike Eisele, Chief Technology Officer at TeamViewer. TeamViewer, a name everybody knows, but he will tell us that we don't know very much about TeamViewer yet, but this comes later. Luis, please start and make your presentation.
So Hans-Joachim, thank you so much. I have the honor of starting this session, but let me start by saying good afternoon and welcoming my fellow colleague from GTI, Dr. Robert Herrmann. Thank you so much. It's an honor for us to have you here. And the reason is very, very simple. We do believe that obviously we're here to bring more German investment to Portugal. But the fact is, more investment, more trade is always two ways. It always goes both sides. So we are anticipating not only more investment in Germany, but also more Portuguese investment in Germany. So I thank you for your support for being here. Let me also say hello to your ambassador, who has been following up on this Portugal Makes Sense initiative since the beginning and has always given us a huge boost. Martin, you're fully convinced now, Portugal makes sense, right? Okay. Also a warm word, a warm welcome to Cecilas, to the Chamber of Commerce President, Markus Kemper, and Hans-Joachim here, who's with us in the panel. And I'd like also to thank Cecilia, the Chamber, for the great job we did together. We wouldn't be here also without your support. I think the ambassador put it beautifully yesterday, saying, you know, if any of these pieces had missed, we wouldn't have done it. And that's exactly true. I think we all did a great job to be here and are very happy to be here. So having said this, let's go to why does Portugal make sense? Is it true or not? Well, I have to admit that I'm extremely comforted because the president of BDI actually said on this stage that he does believe so, and he actually confirms our claim. So if that was the only purpose, I have to admit, I would go back and sit down, it's done. But I'll try to reinforce the message. And I think it's important for at least the German companies here in the room. We have more than 550 German companies operating out of Portugal. And what is very, very interesting is that the majority of these companies are extremely large companies. And so what we feel is, and what we want, is that we believe that what you call here the Mittelstand, some other German industrialists should also benefit from the competitive advantages of Portugal. And so let me give you 3 data points on talent and competitiveness of Portugal. 3rd highest rate of engineering graduates in Europe. 30% of graduates in ICT, engineering, math, and natural sciences. And just in English, we have a proficiency level of number 7 around the world. But I can tell you that we have a high proficiency level in several foreign languages. The large majority of our youngsters will speak at least 2 foreign languages. This is an extremely competitive resource for any company that exports around or does business around the world. And this is really, Portugal is a country where you can find a skilled, multilingual pool of talent, and also in a cosmopolitan environment. It's not by chance that we're also the 3rd best destination for expats. And we're also the 4th most peaceful country and stable in the world. And believe me, out of the 3 before that, either you really want to go somewhere really, really cold or really, really far away. So Portugal really fares well on those advantages. The other thing that I would like to share with the audience is, I think all of us here I know fairly well Germany, I have to admit that, but just like the average Portuguese industrialist knows Germany, the average German industrialist knows Portugal. He knows someone Portuguese. He's been to Portugal on holiday. But what most people probably don't realize or don't know is, did you know that actually our biggest export sector is the automotive sector, machinery and metalworking? That represents more than 25%, more than a quarter of our exports, total exports. The other thing that people don't usually know, don't usually associate to Portugal, is that Portugal is considered nowadays one of the top 10 FDI destinations. This shows how competitive. And this is not ICEP saying. We use only global or validated rankings that are independent from us. This is basically an external data point that we have. And this created what we call a technological environment in Portugal. That's why we have such a strong and booming and vibrant startup ecosystem. But it's also, why nowadays we claim, and I believe that some of the Portuguese companies and German companies here, you'll claim with us that nowadays Portugal is not only about made in Portugal, it's also about created in Portugal. This is the type of competitiveness that you can have in Portugal. This is the reality of Portugal in 2022. Now, just looking into the relationship between Portugal and Germany, we could obviously go into, we have a 100 years relation or more than that. Actually, Siemens has been in the country for more than 100 years. But the fact is, the reality nowadays is that Germany was last year our 2nd largest FDI productive investment partner. Just to give you an example, Bosch in the past 5 years has invested more than 200 million euros, not in productive factors, actually in R&D, pure R&D out of Portugal. So development from scratch in partnership with the Portuguese University of new products, new technological solutions. So I think nowadays, we can consider us already a strong partner of the German industry. But it's not only in the German industry, it's also in the service arena, and you'll hear TeamViewer on this. If we consider all of the German investment on the service arena and the software development area, we already have more than 9,000 people just working for German companies out of Portugal. Now, when you look at a country of our size, this is huge. So, although we believe that we are a strong partner for Germany, but above all, Germany is already a very, very strong partner for Portugal. And this is important also to realize in this relationship. The final thing that I would like to mention is that I'm sure that all of your customers nowadays have a huge sustainability concern. This is the other thing where Portugal is different. Portugal has bet on sustainability for the past 20 years. We have delivered systematically on sustainable indicators, on renewable production of electricity. So not only you can find a competitive setting, but what I'd say a competitive setting for the future, where you also know that you can leverage our sustainability for your production and for the components that your final consumers will also value in terms of sustainable production. This is something that you can also find in Portugal. So having said this, I think we have a good setting for strong German investment. We have a great setting for sourcing and R&D partnerships. And so I look forward to do more business with German companies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luis. Robert, you are the other side, so you attract investment to Germany, and you are very successful. From Portugal, you have also some cases. One we will see later, but please make a presentation of what makes you attract companies to Germany.
Yeah, thank you very much. Luis, thank you for the very nice introduction. You had so many good numbers that show the relevance of the cooperation between Portugal and Germany. I don't want to add too many of them. Maybe a few words about us. So Germany Trade and Invest is the economic development agency of the German government. We support business in Germany. We attract companies to Germany, service them as you do for Portugal, as well as the other way around. We inform German companies about businesses in foreign markets. And so very important that we speak also about Portugal. All the other nations worldwide. Very important for us is we are very neutral in comparison to us. In comparison to us attracting companies to Germany, we are positive, let's say. On the other way around, we are neutral. We try to inform companies about all the opportunities, also threats and relevant impact that they might face, or that important aspect that they should consider being internationally active. So very important for us to do both ways, because it's, as you mentioned, Luis, it's interconnected. If we speak with companies, they very often, so we actually do not care whether a German company cooperates with the Portuguese companies in Portugal or in Germany, because it's our job to support both. So very relevant. Sometimes you even do not know beforehand whether they do it there or here. So I think it's a very important key of the cooperation between us and other nations, and as well as especially also with Portugal. You mentioned, Hans-Joachim, that I should say a few words about what drives us today. I think everyone has learned already in the past months that the new coalition government is very much focusing on climate change aspects. So we have the very often known 3 Ds in mind. If we think about what's happening, so 1D is decarbonization. We do focus all the topics that have to do with decarbonization, the transition to a climate protecting industry and economy. Whereas the second D is digitalization. We will hear about that a little later. That drives all the industries that are here, all the actors that are here today, technical industry sectors that all of a sudden are very much depending on digitalization and their processes and products. So very interesting to see what's happening, and you can see that on the different booths here in this floor, for example, where you have the R&D focus. And the third D is the demographic change. And Luis, again, you have mentioned the employee structure, workforce development, a very, very important topic. I think for every nation in Europe, we in Germany have an aging society, so it's very important to understand where to develop products and how to develop the products here and abroad. The very often cited fourth D is the deglobalization. I don't agree with that. I think this is happening. It's still different from before. It changes dramatically, but especially within Europe, that's not global, but it's very interesting or relevant to be active on an international basis. So consider all the other regions as business opportunities, as well as partnering opportunities for their business, for German business, as well as Portuguese business, or as well as other European businesses. These 4Ds, or especially the 3Ds, do not only influence businesses, they also influence us. Communication and collaboration is different all of a sudden. So we have learned that in the past 2 years. That's part of how we interconnect between the nations. How do we come together? We have trade fairs all of a sudden again. That's very important. We also have other arena speaking about businesses on an international level. So I think we have to always have in mind that how we attract business to a region, how we start collaboration and cooperation, because that changes dramatically, and it's also influencing international activities of companies. So whether they relocate activities or whether they stay where they are and establish a kind of a service structure in another nation to establish their internationalization. Having said that, the last topic that I wanted to mention is cooperation between us. We need cooperation within Europe. We need cooperation between the economies, the companies, from Portugal as well, from Germany. So please do use this trade fair, do use this afternoon to better understand what does it mean to be in Germany, as well as what does it mean to be in Portugal, to make sure that you benefit from the opportunities. There are manifold opportunities, and there is help. There are servicing organizations, Germany Trade and Invest, as well as ICEP, are helping. So in case you would have questions, do not hesitate to ask either the two of us or our teams. We are very happy to give you an insight, the necessary insight in understanding the other nation, the other economy. Having said that, I think more relevant than we speak in pink glamour ideas about our nations, the companies should speak, because they should hopefully confirm that there are business opportunities. They will, because they are active in the other nations, and I think there are the opportunities. This is the real let's say, life, the real business that happens, and I think you will understand what drove them to do business in the other nation. I look very much forward to understand and to learn to better service those companies, you companies. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert. This is called Why Portugal and Why Germany? Not only why Portugal. And this is exactly what we want to put on the table here. Both countries are very advanced. Maybe 15 years ago it would have been only why Portugal, because the influx of German investment to Portugal was the only one. There was almost no Portuguese investment to Germany. But this has changed, and we will see it later. The Prime Minister yesterday and this morning spoke about 600 German investment in Portugal. He has a better source of information. As head of government, we know only 532. But this may be also the case that in the past 2 years, our figures are from 2020, that in the last 2 years, many new companies came from Germany, and we can confirm this. So it is actually true. But don't believe that these 600 companies are all industrial companies. There are more and more service companies. We will have one example here. And there are many companies also who go to Portugal to sell their products. They have subsidiaries to sell, to make service, etc. So the number is impressive, but it is not only greenfield industrial investment, as many people may have thought. And the case that we have investment in both directions is also a clear sign of the competitiveness of both countries. Germany has always been known as competitive, but Portugal is as well. The maturity of the relations between the economic relations between both countries, and therefore it makes every sense for Portuguese companies also to look at their opportunities in Germany and not only the Germans in Portugal. Especially as to market access. The German market is very important to Portuguese companies, and market access is via several ways. Certainly the trade fair like this is one, but more and more sophistication in the product means also more and more closeness to the customer. We will see this later. So I come now to what Robert just said, to the companies. We have 4 cases here of companies, and I will ask all of them one by one to explain what their investment is in Portugal, what the rationale for the investment is or was, including, if applicable, potential other locations that have been considered, and why Portugal, why not the other one, with the reasons. Experiences during the investment process could be positive, hopefully, could be negative. Also, here are the two gentlemen to tell them, to avoid that this happens again. And the one important question, would I do it again? Because this says either yes or not is important. First one I would like to ask is Miguel. Miguel's company has been here for longer than he himself, but he has been in the company for many years, and now he is CEO and has been responsible for investments in the past years. So please touch only on these, not in the 50s and 60s. Okay. Miguel, please.
Yes. Good afternoon. Boa tarde. Guten Tag. First of all, thank you very much for having me here. A special thank to the Portuguese government and to ICEP for inviting Schmitt-Aufzüge to be here at the Hannover Messe. The elevator is for sure not the sexiest of products, although I think it is. But now imagine, more people are living in cities, the urbanization, and buildings are getting higher in the cities. People are getting older, and now imagine there are no lifts. How could we live? I hope I could open your attention to elevators, and now I would like to give you a brief description of what Schmitt-Aufzüge does. We are a company based in Nuremberg. We are from the so-called German Mittelstand. We have operations in Germany, in Austria, in the Czech Republic, and in Portugal. The company was founded in 1861. Last year we had the 160th birthday of the company. It's still a family-owned company in its 6th generation, and we have 1,900 people working with us and approximately 200 million turnover. We have 3 main business areas. First one, new installations. We provide technical support to architects, to engineering companies, selling, producing, assembling all kinds of elevators. We are specialized in the production of premium elevators, custom-made, from panoramic lifts to passenger lifts, in office buildings, to residential buildings, train stations, hospitals, or even in production facilities. Where there is a need to transport vertically people, there is Schmitt & Sohn. We also won several design awards in the last years. You need, for example, highly skilled engineers and technicians to operate with highly sophisticated machines in the production processes. So the second point, or the second area where we work, is the modernization of existing elevators of different brands or OEMs. For different functionality groups, we can change them over time. So, for example, the traction machine or the control system, just to increase the energy efficiency of the elevators. This business area needs high expertise and very specific solutions that we develop internally. The third area is service. Achim told about service. Yes, we do preventive and predictive maintenance, repair, spare parts, 24-hour service, remote monitoring, and also consultancy, mainly in the efficiency, energy efficiency area of existing elevators. Here we need highly skilled service technicians. What do we do in Portugal? We are in Portugal for more than 60 years. In Portugal we manage 2 factories, engineering and R&D facilities, and 6 branches all over Portugal. We are the only company in Portugal to produce and export complete elevators. We export elevators to Germany, to Austria, to Czech Republic, but also to some markets from the former Portuguese colonies in Africa. Currently, we have more than 500 employees in Portugal. In the last 5 years, we increased our employee number by more than 25%. We have been investing in 3 main areas in Portugal: in the production, in R&D, and in services. Looking at production, this is still the area where we are investing most. In the last 10 years, we have been investing very strongly in the expansion of our 2 production sites in Portugal to increase our production capacity. We have added also new cutting-edge production technologies, for example, the most modern laser cutting machines, but also modern manufacturing execution systems. We have an investment plan to expand our 2 factories in Portugal even more in the near future. But I would like to stress that we have also factories in Germany. These are complementary, and the group has been investing in both countries. This is very important for us. In the R&D area, we have been developing new products in Portugal for the wool group. We have our R&D subdivided in competence centers between Germany and Portugal. Portugal is, for example, responsible for the competence center elevator doors that we can see here at the Messe, or, for example, the competence center seismic solutions for elevators, a very new and interesting area. As I said, you can see our 5 new products at the stand of Portugal in this hall. The premium glass doors for elevator, they are fire resistant over 120 minutes. There are only a very few companies worldwide that produce such kinds of products. And our product was developed in Portugal and is produced in Portugal. In the R&D area, we have currently more than 40 engineers and technicians developing new solutions for the wool group. We have also developed an elevator ecosystem, if you want. We manage several partnerships with innovation centers, for example, Fraunhofer Portugal, that you may know. Fraunhofer is for sure very known in Germany, and the first center in Europe outside Germany was in Portugal. And we are working with them, and for sure in a very good partnership. But also universities and different certified labs in Portugal. The third area where we are present is the service, where we develop new services. We are looking, for example, to servitization, meaning we can define it as a process of creating value for companies and for the customer by adding services to products. If you want, providing complete solutions to the company or to the customer, not selling only products. And we have developed in Portugal the remote monitoring system called Next also. And through different sensors in the elevator, you can get real-time data about the functioning of the elevator. And with the help of Fraunhofer Portugal, we are now able to provide predictive maintenance to our customers and to know, even before the customers feel or see some problems with elevators, we are able to know that something is not okay. Why Portugal? Let me share with you 2 improvement opportunities. I would not say negative aspects. Achim. First one, the licensing. Okay, the bureaucratic aspects could be somehow improved. This is one of the points. The second one is fiscal instability. There is sometimes a change in the fiscal laws, and this could be for sure improved, trying to get the fiscal law a little bit more stabilized over some years. Now to the positive aspects that you asked for. First of all, I would mention the talent, the human resources. We have a very high skilled workforce. Their flexibility is for sure one of the aspects that I would like to stress, but also the adaptability. People in Portugal are open to new processes and products, and we know this every day in our company. But I will talk about talent a little later on. Second, Portugal has a long tradition and competence in the metalworking industry, and we are benefiting from it. Third one, we have a good network of local suppliers, for example, for engineered parts. Several of them are here in the Messe, for molds and also for electrical cables and installations, just to number a few. Fourth aspect, Portugal has world-class investigation centers. For our products, we need certified bodies and our partners. I mentioned before Fraunhofer, for example. And just, if you don't know, Fraunhofer is the largest organization of applied research in Europe. Okay? And so we benefit from this know-how also in Portugal, but you have many others. Then the fifth aspect, the political stability of the country with a Western world-oriented culture. This is also something very important over the years. Also the support of local authorities and of the investment agencies, ICEP. And finally, German companies are very well accepted and respected in Portugal. To sum up, I would say we are very satisfied with our investment in Portugal over the years, and we will continue. So yes, Portugal makes sense, and I would really say Portugal makes absolutely sense.
Thank you very much, Miguel, for your very interesting and complete presentation. Nuno, you are operating in Germany.
I am.
What can you say about what you're doing, and also the other questions I put on the rationale of the investment and your experience?
And finally, would we do it again? Which I can say immediately, we would. I would like to greet the audience.
You don't need to say anything more.
I would like to greet the audience, and as Miguel did also, to thank ICEP Global for the invitation, also to thank my fellow panel colleagues, as well as the ambassador and Mr. Kemper also. Thank you for being here and for this possibility. Yes, we represent maybe something that's not that common, which is a Portuguese SME operating in Germany. Essentially, on what I'm about to say now, I will hope to structure it in three parts. First, the numbers, and I hope to not be extremely boring. Then the experience. I think this is essentially why we are here. The experience is everything. This is an investment decision. How was it done? Would we do it again? And third, the message. So first, let's get some numbers and some explanations out of the way, so to speak. For those of you that do not know Omnidea Group, we were founded in 2005. We currently are around 104 people. We operate in many locations. We have offices in Niedersachsen, so Stur, in the Bremen region, Stur and Brinkum. We have 3 offices in Portugal, Caparica, Ruda dos Vinhos and Azores. We have offices in Leicester, we have offices in Bucharest, and we have offices in Athens. We have a big division also in Spain that operates satellites, as I will explain. The group is structured around 3 business divisions, one of which is the mother company. Omnidea Portugal essentially does research and development in technology, as long as that technology is applicable to 2 main markets, space and energy. In essence, we end up covering the lower parts of what usually are called technology readiness levels. And we do between fundamental research and also the beginning steps of engineering development for technologies such as rocket engines, hybrid rocket engines, aerial platforms, compressed overwrap pressure vessels, dissimilar metallic transitions, and more recently also other markets that are covered, such as hybridization of vehicles. The second business division, the one I will explain in bigger detail and length here, is exactly what brings us here. That's Omnidea RTG. Omnidea RTG is an SME, a KMU, as we say it here in Germany, that operates on space components. Essentially, we do assembly, integration, and testing of space components in the Bremen region, and we also assemble full sub-propulsion systems for spacecrafts, so usually what is called satellites. The third business arm, perhaps the one that has given us more recognition in recent times, is that we currently own and operate 2 satellites, previously Deimos 1 and Deimos 2, property of the Canadian Eurocast Group. They are now property of a company called Geosat, of which Omnidea owns 55%. Geosat operates 2 satellites. Geosat-1 is a wide swath satellite. So essentially a satellite that gives you pictures that cover a very big area, and you have good repeatability, so you can cover things like the soil erosion, the changing and different levels of rivers throughout time. And a second satellite, which is Geosat-2, which is a very different satellite, one of the very few in Europe, and the only one operated by a private SME in Europe that has a sub 50 centimeter resolution. With this, of course, you can take very interesting photographs as long as cloud cover allows, because our satellites are optical only. And they have been, as most of you can imagine, of significant interest in the past 2 or 3 months due to the Ukraine crisis. So, in overview, this is the group. Again, just as a reminder, around 104 people, approximately 6 million euros of turnover per year, and about 8 to 9 million of backlog. Let's get a bit more in depth of what do we do in Germany, and even more than that, and that's what I'm here to say, the experience and the investment decision to come to Germany. So as I previously mentioned, Omniday RTG is a company that is involved in space production, space components. So we do essentially fluidic components, pressure regulators, valves, transition joints, most of the things that are needed whenever you have a liquid propulsion satellite. And in our case, we did not decide to create this company from scratch. As we were previously discussing, and we believe this is a fundamental part of what made this a success story, we had the opportunity also to buy a German SME that was insolvent. Nonetheless, this was not done by chance. And the reason I say this is that, in my opinion, the success of our company is a fruit of a previous insuccess. The first internationalization attempt that Omniday Group did was in 2008, when we attempted to create a company in Norway as a joint venture together with a Norwegian company. That was done in Bergen, and we believe we marketed ourselves in an incorrect way, essentially trying to outsource relatively inexpensive engineering consultancy, and we were viewed, I think, by our Norwegian partner as usually something that they would do on the side. This led to the closure of the joint venture before 2011. So when in 2012, 2013, we had the opportunity to come to Germany, more than what we wanted to do, we knew more or less what we didn't want to do. So we knew that we wanted an established player on the site to get us up to speed more quickly on what we needed to do, that gave us an idea of how the country operated, and in our case, and this was very important, that would from the get-go supply us with personnel, processes, and facilities. The fourth part of this success story, without any doubt, was the incredible support we received from the German Space Agency, from the DLR, to whom I am and will always be extremely thankful. They had put a significant investment in the company we acquired. They talked to us. They knew we were not, perhaps at the beginning, the go-to possibility to take over the company RTG that we took over. But they also knew what they wanted from this cooperation between Portugal and Germany, so at higher level between the Portuguese Space Agency and the German Space Agency, and they helped guide us along the way. It was not always easy. The first 2 years took a lot of adaptation. We call it internally in the company our Germanization process. I must say, no stranger to this Germanization process. I worked at Volkswagen from between 2004 and 2005. I already spoke a little bit of the language, but still I knew this would be a massive effort for a company as small as we were, and in some essence we still are. And after saying, so in our case, and just to conclude the second part of my speech, we didn't exactly made a business decision as a business opportunity was put in front of us. Portugal was, in 2012, 2013, in extremely difficult condition financially. we rely on the group heavily on the support from the European Space Agency. What we knew when the opportunity presented itself to us was that if you want to be serious about working in the space market, you cannot say no to the biggest European space market, and that's Germany. So the question put in front of us was two things. Could we say no to this business opportunity? And would it make business sense? We very rapidly understood that we had the capability, if we stretched it, to actually take on this challenge. The second part of this equation, would it immediately make business sense, was the most complicated one. But here comes the final third part of my speech. That's when the key message I want to deliver to all of those in the audience that are thinking whether or not to come to Germany and open up something here. This is, from my point of view, the critical message. Trust. Trust when you come to Germany that the stabilities of the institutions that run Germany will provide you with a solid business case and with adequate planning for you to make your investment decisions. Trust an incredible chain of suppliers that are usually on time, on cost. In the area where we are represented in Bremen area, they are also, fortunately for us, abundant and nearby. And finally, almost always certified and with extreme quality. Finally, also, from our point of view, trust also the support of your clients. In the business where we operate, in space components, there's not so much competitors to us, so most of the clients welcome us as long as we, like our chain of suppliers, deliver with quality, deliver on time, and deliver as expected. In our case, we work in the space business. As we say, maintenance usually is not a possibility for us. Once the satellite takes off, there's not much more you can do except apologize to your customer, and that's something we don't want to do. That's something that's never good. So my final message to all of those here is, if you are only rounding the numbers and thinking, does it make sense to go to Germany? Yes, the per hour costs, the per hour rates can be scary for the Portuguese reality. Can be, they don't have to be. You can get around it. But what you will find here in this country in terms of infrastructure of support for you to do your business is more than enough. Bring one thing, the willingness to work. And that's my message.
Thank you very much, Nuno. Maybe the Pope would say that before needing to apologize to clients, you may pray. But certainly, maintenance is not possible. You're completely right. Yes, Pedro, you're also operating in Germany, but with a different purpose and with different circumstances. Could you please present us your case in the same categories we have been hearing from the others?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, once again, thank you very much for the invitation to be present on this session. It's good to be back to Hanover, especially in a year that we have Portugal as a partner country. And yes, basically, before I explain what was the rationale behind our investment decision in Germany, in Dresden, firstly, I would like also to explain who we are and what we do, so you can understand better the investment. So, Critical Manufacturing is a Portuguese company. The headquarters is in Baia, in the north, near Porto. We are about 400 employees, persons, basically. And we, since the beginning that we have been exposed, or we focus on the external markets, so we are a kind of a born global company, so to say. And our product is a manufacturing execution system. This solution can be perceived almost like a brain of a facility, because we need to deal with all the operational workflows, and we need to manage in a way that optimize the operations. And basically, these kind of solutions is sold to customers. Our main customers belong to the semiconductor industry, from medical devices industry, electronics industry, and you can imagine this kind of solutions being the single source of truth of all the information related with operations in the facility. So we are working in very demanding markets like United States, Germany, and China. And since we were a small company, when I joined the company, we were about 100 persons. We needed really to be focused on our in the different segments that we want to approach. And for that reason, we started to have a focused strategy on the semiconductor industry. And basically, that was the reason we want to address the German markets. Basically, and just to conclude basically who we are today, our company was bought in 2018 by ASMPT, Asian giant from electronics. And currently, we are reporting to a business division that is based here in Munich. So, just going back to the rationale of the investment, since we were quite a small company, we need to be focused. So basically, we want to position ourselves as MES experts. We have our own solution. So basically, this solution is being developed in Portugal. And this solution was recognized by Gartner as world-class MES, a world-class solution to manage the facility operations. And basically, since on the first year, we were completely focused on the semiconductor market, and for that reason, we started to look to the European market, and Germany was the main country to be present, basically. And we have decided to invest in Dresden after several. So this office was established in August 2011. And there are several reasons why we have decided Dresden, the location of our office, but I will emphasize two. One is a very simple reason. Basically, we could understand the importance of established business with German companies in the mother tongue, so to say. So basically, it was really important to have German employees or German speakers in our company. And so we could build and, in fact, build trust, like you said just previously, trust with our customers in their mother tongue. And the other reason was the fact of the solution is used on the operations by all kind of users. So you can expect, or we expect, we see that many of head of productions use our system, but at the same time, the system is used by the operators. So it was really important to, for instance, translate the solutions to German in the, so it could be used on the operations. And this localization effort was really the driver of the investment. We basically, with this investment in Dresden, we could have local partners to collect information regarding the market and then adapt the solution, to adapt our business approach according with the market requirements. So basically, and there is another important aspect of the decision of investing in Dresden. Dresden is a well-known technology center for semiconductor, and that also allow us to be part of an ecosystem that besides understands and values our solutions, it was also presents us as, to a quite broad network of customers, partners, suppliers, and that's also an important reason to decide to invest in Dresden. So basically, the investment paid off, and we, critical manufacturing, even expand to other locations here in Germany. So we have been establishing business, for instance, with Infineon and Osram in Munich and Regensburg, and even in another segments like B. Braun in medical devices and TDK, for instance, in the electronics. That's just to conclude my intervention. I believe that organizations like Silicon Saxony in Dresden, ASEP in Portugal, Câmara de Comércio e Indústria Luso-Alemã, they play a key role in these investments because they have the expertise to support all kinds of small and medium companies on this internationalization process that is really demanding. It requires a lot of expertise and even a consistent funding so the investment can flourish some years after. So.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Now I would like to invite Mike to make his presentation. You are different to all others because your company name is worldwide known, at least in many countries, and probably or certainly all the audience may know, especially now in Corona times, it has been much more used than ever. And second, you are the one who had made the latest investment in Portugal, which is only very recent.
Yeah.
So please give us your views.
Yeah, thank you first. Thanks for having me and thanks for inviting me. Also, thanks for all the great support. Just to say that from government, from you, Mr. Böhmer, from many others, it's really a good experience going into Portugal and having people there and establishing an office. But first, some words about TeamViewer. You mentioned, likely some of you, most of you should know TeamViewer. So the TeamViewer company is a company where we say we want to create a world that works better. And we do that by digitalizing workspaces. And it's not just where we started to establish remote connectivity solutions in the simplest form, connecting from one PC to another PC and helping from a remote location. And we call that typically help your mom and dad use case. Because we actually get many letters from people that help their mom and dad and say thank you for having that software. That's where we started. But we expanded tremendously into much more helping other companies to digitalize their environment, their workflows, and their processes. And we do that not just by remoting into PCs or phones or tablets, but also into machinery, into point of sales devices, in IoT devices, and we also remote into head-mounted displays to guide remote users in fulfilling workflows and guiding and instructing people, giving remote assistance. And this is then not just by a human giving the remote assistance, but also having AI capabilities and automated workflows so that a worker can use our software, our solution, to automatically fulfill their processes, ensure the process is done correctly, and achieve a higher quality. And this is where we enable frontline workers to also use our solutions and broaden our solution portfolio. And that's why we also have a continuous need of additional workforce, developers predominantly, that help us to build these solutions and fulfill customer needs. And we therefore also have needs in pure remote connectivity into devices and tablets and machinery, but also enabling digitalizing workflows, etc. And we then took the opportunity and said, okay, we need to make a step change because we really look at our company in a way that we grew significantly. We are now 1,500 people worldwide. It's not obviously not just engineers, it's a global organization by now. And we want to move forward on all areas in all directions. So we also need to preserve our heritage in being a very agile and very, let's say, startup-like company. And when we have new joiners entering our company from a mature, let's say, big corporation, they say they still feel TeamViewer is a startup, although I, being more than 10 years in the company, think there were other times, which is good, but we need to also kind of reinvent ourselves in getting also a bit influence from the outside to challenge ourselves. Are we still agile enough? Are we still active enough? And do we still run as smooth, as simple, as fluent as possible? And that's why we sat down and said, okay, we want to increase the R&D capabilities, but we also want to kind of get some cultural influence that challenge us in what we do, how we do it, and are we still kind of agile enough? And that's why we sat down and said, okay, we have some needs. We need to obviously have highly skilled R&D people. We have very high requirements on code quality, security of the product, these kind of things. But we also have regulation requirements in EU, GDPR topics, etc. So we said we need to have R&D expansion, but it should be in European area, in the EU. And then we looked at different regions, and we then talked to several governments and supporting agencies, ASAP, for example, and found that Portugal is really a very supportive area, country, and we also saw the great talent that's available there with the plus of a very good education in English language. Because in our company, we all speak in English, even in German office, all meetings are in English, and it's the natural English for us, and we want to actually produce all the documentation, all source code, everything should be in one language, and that's why it was another plus for us to go to Portugal. We then reviewed a bit and said, okay, how can we do that? And we decided to really start by going to Portugal, by buying a small consultant agency or company, because we really wanted to have a culture that was established in Portugal to influence our culture back, and where we can also then kind of share experiences and also get challenged a bit to kind of reinvent ourselves to some extent also in R&D, and get also a bit a push of this can be simpler, this can be different, we saw other things. And that's why we made the decision to look for a company, smaller company, it was like 20 people company, found a very good, attractive company where we also had then a couple of discussions. We flew there with some people from the management, also I flew there, had conversations and found that the mindset and the support and the openness to work together and to achieve a greater outcome by joining the two companies was very convincing, and that's where we then finally made also the decisions that yes, that's the right place to be, with the right company, the right partner, and then we felt the support from government and other supporting organizations. We then took obviously the decision and started to work together. This was, I believe it was March last year when we did first decisions, and then also had some visits in Portugal. And we now have the office, we renovated the office, obviously to make really attractive workplace. We will have soon opening, and we have already internally in the TeamViewer company a very high, let's say, desire and ask for, I also want to have a team in Portugal. So other departments now join R&D, which I obviously am responsible. Marketing wants to have people there, sales people, support, which also can then support the South American market. We also have even finance people that want to have people there. So there is a huge demand of additional talent in our company. And it's not just for, let's say, salary difference versus in other markets. It's really about the spirit, the thinking, the mindset of we can achieve more and we're really eager to achieve something. And that is really why we decided for Portugal and did the acquisition of the company. And if you, as you said, you want to ask me if I would do it again, yes, absolutely, I would do it again. Would recommend to everyone. For us, it was very good to really start with a small company, kind of an acqui-hire, and have then established kind of business and to grow from there. And now we have many, obviously, many open job openings, and we will double literally, hopefully as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank all again for this first round of questions. I would like to make now a second one. The first one was based on your activities and experiences. Now I want to focus on certain topics, that is talent, production, surroundings and cost, and the context. As to talent, it has been mentioned explicitly or implicitly, because talent is a major importance for all of you on the decision taking. But also the question is availability, how easy or not so easy it is to get them and or to train them, and if such activities are supported by ICEP or GTIE or others. So this would be one of the questions. The cost of production, some don't have cost of production if you make marketing here, but also you have cost of production. And this includes also the supplier side, because if you have suppliers in your near neighborhood, it's much easier than if you have to go elsewhere. And the third is, if the last 2 years where we had surprises, unforeseen surprises, like the pandemic, if this makes any impact or takes any impact on your decisions. And now I would like to have first the two who have invested in Portugal, and then the two who have invested in Germany. Mike, you just spoke, so you still are in the mood. Please, you will be the first to speak on these topics, if you have something to say or to add.
Yes, so obviously talent, as you said, is very important for us. I think it's like everywhere, you need to be a very attractive employer to really attract the best talent. You need to take care of people, you need to give a good working environment, and I think, which my thinking is, you need to have also very interesting tasks to do for your employees and give them responsibility. So it's a completely different thing if you say, yeah, develop this or develop that, rather than we want to build a new product, which we also did, and it should look like this and that. What's the idea, dear Portugal team? And then they feel the responsibility and they really are motivated to really make a difference and show what can be done with them and together with them if you listen and ask them. So I think it's not that much different than in, let's say, other areas, but you need to also not just see it as a, let's say, extended workbench. It's more a full on-par development extension, which they build new products, we build new products in Germany, and you need to treat them like this. And I think that works then very nicely. And they are also quite respected by the colleagues in Germany and vice versa. So there, I think there's, from a cultural perspective, it's very easy. We also got quite good support from universities with being in events there, showing, having onboarding events, etc. And the other question was on situations like the pandemic. Obviously, that doesn't make things easier. We cannot ship employees over to us. It's hard to visit them. You don't get that easy relationship building. But my sense was everyone really wants to make all effort that's possible to really make a collaboration possible. So I think as good as it gets, but now as it has been a bit relieved, it's much easier, and people are really willing to travel, obviously, to Portugal. That's also a good advantage. So living there is also nice, so everyone wants to visit it. So that's easy, but also vice versa. So also Portuguese colleagues are happy to join us in our German site. So I think that's an advantage. So all in all, I think good support. If there would be more talent, I think it would be even easier, but I think that's everywhere the case.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Miguel, you are also operating in Portugal as to these three topics.
Okay, let's start with talent. It has really a very enormous impact on our investment decisions. But let me share with you, we have also the German dual system in Portugal. And the German-Portuguese Chamber of Industry and Commerce, die Deutsch-Portugiesische Industrie- und Handelskammer, introduced more than 30 years ago this kind of professional education. So we prepare fine young people in management, but also in the electronics or mechatronics area. We at Schmitt-Aufzüge, we have more than 20 apprentices in Portugal, Auszubildende, as we say in Germany, every year, and more of 90% of them remain with us in the company after the course. Then a second aspect I would like also to stress, and this has to do with talent, and it was mentioned with the Prime Minister before, languages. Everyone speaks fluently English, but we also have 3 German schools in Portugal. We have 1 German school in Porto, 1 in Lisbon, and 1 in the Algarve. This could be also very important for expats, okay? Then we have a very good university system, company-oriented, with high qualified young engineers, for example, in the area of software, mentioning, but also for us very important, electrical and mechanics. And they come to Schmitt, for example, in our company through internships, and they will remain with us over the years. To retain them, we have to give them, for sure, a very good working environment. This we try to do, and we have been successful in doing this. Very project-based. Young people like projects, so we have to create every time new projects so that they stay focused and with us, and for sure paying over average. For the costs of production, they are for sure an important aspect, but our decision to invest in Portugal is not on personal costs per se. It is the availability and the skills that the human resources have and that we are able to get in Portugal. But we have the transport costs, We have the transport costs that could be a problem when we compare to countries that are nearby to Germany. But when comparing to companies that are producing in Asia, for example, we have a big advantage. And for sure, the context that we live in is very critical in that aspect. So there are not only better costs for us, but also the delivery periods. And this is a really advantage for our group. And since our employees are flexible and adaptable, this is also a very important aspect that I mentioned before, we could also introduce new management processes, for example, the lean management in our company without strong resistance. And this was very important for our production costs, okay? People are really open to participate in new things, as I mentioned, and we could really achieve an increase in production effectiveness and efficiency. Finally, to the context you mentioned, Achim. We are in Europe, near to Germany. We are only producing in Europe and giving European suppliers preference. This was always our strategy in the Schmitt-Aufzüge group. And so in this existing context, with this pandemic situation and with the actual war, this becomes absolutely a clear and good decision for us. So we are less affected by the global supply chains disruptions. So we are really benefiting at the time being from this situation. So I think this would be to sum up the main topics about this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, coming to those two operating in Germany, as to talent, certainly the same question as to the others, maybe with the difficulty of attracting very good ones if you are an unknown company.
That's true.
Yeah. Pedro, please.
Very well. So that's true. So yeah, I believe that everyone understands why the talent is key to be successful on this economy, and we are not different. And I can even explain that we have very aggressive plans to grow. We have grown year to year, 2020 to 2021, about 70%. And we want to contract about 200 new persons during this year to face our aggressive plan. And I recall that we are 400 persons, so this is 50%. We will really give a quite big jump in terms of persons to manage and to work in our company. And talent is key because it's exactly like Mike said. We need to empower these persons in order to grow, in order to scale our operation. So, and in fact, going to the question related to the pandemic was a catalyst of process digitalization, and we are in fact facing a growth opportunity in our company that really requires talent so the company can grow. We are in fact looking for not only IT engineers but also industrial engineers, because we believe that we need to keep the business domain, the business knowledge that will allow us to build our own solutions, and that's the way we want to grow, basically. And yeah, basically, yeah, besides the fact of the talent being so important, we are also embracing several different new technologies in our business, and even establishing partnerships in different geographies, again, to try to scale up our business. That is very demanding. It's quite a challenge, but it's a good challenge, I would say.
Thank you, Pedro. When I made this extra question, you may change your face, so probably this affects you as well, as to talent.
For sure. So I'm going to assume that my previous colleagues explained the importance of talent. In my case, it's perhaps more interesting to use it as a reference for what we do in space. So when you arrive as a foreign SME into the Bremen space scene and you try to attract talent, you have in front of you OHB, Airbus Defence and Space, and Ariane Group. It's absolutely clear there and then that you cannot go into a wage war. That's something we would never win. So there's essentially two critical things when you're trying to hire talent in any country. I would just say that Germany has some specificities to it from the experience we have. You have first to hire them, and then you need to keep them. Only one of these challenges is also relatively significant for us in Portugal. Hiring is usually not so hard. But so in Germany, what can you do? Well, in the market we work, you start off with some advantages. Space is sexy, regardless of how small your SME is. And that will always be true. The other point, and for me, having previously worked for Volkswagen, becomes also absolutely clear. If you work for a small and medium enterprise, you have a much better capability of shaping your own future within the company. If you get to a higher level, you might even shape the future of the company. But even from the beginning, you can shape your future much better in the company. I deeply respect Volkswagen, but at Volkswagen Wolfsburg, I was a number. I still remember it out of my head. I still remember my Abteilung, but I was a number. Would always be. It's absolutely normal. Nearly 400,000 people. So you have to make advantages of the things you can. The third one I would say, is offer what we also could. For us, it was clear from the get-go, also because of our failed experience, that we didn't want to have a Portuguese team here in Bremen. Would never make sense, would never happen. The fact that we have a multinational team, even being as small as 14 people, gives it also a very interesting elan when you're hiring for people. The second part is how do you maintain talent in a competitive environment like Germany, where there's practically no unemployment. In space, there's zero unemployment. For this, you have to get creative, but you have to respect your employees. You have to offer them possibilities to grow. You offer them stability. That's very interesting and extremely critical for Germans. And whenever you can try, and for sure all of my colleagues have done so in the past, you can try to offer them team building events, everything that builds up the morale. It also doesn't hurt that one of our facilities in Portugal is 2 kilometers away from the beach. And at some point, it is not impossible that some of them will actually go and visit. But in essence, we have been so far successful in having usually an average of 4 to 5 years of keeping someone in the company, which from our point of view is not bad, and it's curiously enough better than what we achieve in Portugal. The second point, costs, is curiously enough relatively related to your workforce, to your talent. This is a huge shock when you have a Portuguese small and medium enterprise, because you come to Germany and its overheads, its per hour rates, everything at the beginning scares you. The first thing you need to learn is efficiency, or proficiency if you prefer, and even more effectiveness is critical in this company. Don't waste any of those man hours. You can go further. You can automatize and you can softwareize your company. I can say that Omnida in Germany uses a lot more, employs a lot more softwares and employs a lot more automation than our company in Portugal does. We wouldn't have survived without it. So try as much as possible to reduce what you do to a set of predetermined tasks that you become very good at performing. From our point of view, the Portuguese way here would definitely not work. It also helped us as a group that we actually tried, or at the end we came to the conclusion that it was just better to do research and development, so the lower technology readiness levels in Portugal, and focus more on production on Germany. Again, much easier to automatize the tasks. You get a quality product out the door, and even though I will always love the created and manufactured in Portugal, we all know made in Germany sells, and sells at the margin. And to the final point, to the point of the pandemic, yes, in our case, we are a manufacturing company. It did hurt us. It also didn't help at the beginning that in the region where we are, the infrastructure to always work through the internet was at the beginning not perfect, although I must commend Germany on an incredible work done in these last 2 years to build up the digital infrastructure and the digital network. But in our case, yes, we have too many times been the company. Germany took a different view to Portugal, no restrictions on going from land to land, so no regional restrictions. This helped us a lot. We live most of us live in the border between Bremen and Lower Saxony, so Niedersachsen. It helped us a lot that there were never barriers to people going. We have to many times visit our suppliers. And in the end, I can say that the pandemic was mostly reduced to some schedule delays that we had. As for the current situation with Ukraine, I can say that, as in everything in life, there are disadvantages but also opportunities, and we will try to make the best out of the opportunities that now present itself, which in our case essentially is, again, especially in space, the independence of the European industry in space.
Thank you very much, Nuno. You investment agencies, I would like to give you the opportunity to comment if you have something learned from what the company says. First, Robert, and later, Luis, if you want.
Yeah, thank you very much. I have learned it's not only about pretzel, beer, or bratwurst. It's more about beaches, and space is sexy. So I think we have to consider all the different aspects. That's what I learned especially. So there are so many aspects related to being in a foreign nation and being active in a foreign country. I know about the hurdles that we might have as Germany. There are prejudices about who we are and what it is, what it means to be in Germany. But I think one of the topics is reliability. That's at least what I learned. It's there tomorrow as well, and helps you tomorrow as well. So that's something good. I think workforce obviously is the major topic, or let's say it's talent. Talent sounds better than workforce. Workforce like an instrument, but talent is so important. I think this is one of the topics that we in Europe maybe also, or all we have to face, and we have to work with this question of how we attract talent, how we manage that we have young or older but innovative, interested, active, agile employees that are making the difference for the companies. If you're a manufacturing company or a service company, that doesn't matter. It's about the talents that you have. Of course, also about technology, but the technology depends very often on the talent that you have. So that's the most relevant topic that I learned. Thank you very much for the input and the feedback. We take it with us and try to promote the positive things out of that.
Thank you, Robert. Luis.
Well, thank you very much. I think they summarized very, very well the war for talent on both sides that we have. I think we're all obviously, the scarcity of talent, it is fairly differentiated in Europe. It is fairly differentiated sector by sector. But the fact is, here in the room, we have sectors that are highly competitive, pay fairly well, have great challenges. Some of them can claim we're sexy, so it works. So these are sectors where obviously demand, especially for highly qualified or unique talent, is huge. And I felt it was very, very interesting because I agree with Mike regarding the idea that you have to take advantage of the local specificity on both sides and then try to see out of the cross-pollinization what can come out of it. It will certainly be better, most probably. And I think that's one of the great things of having an international company. Have people from all over the place, different views, different perspectives, different cultural habits, and sometimes out of that comes something unique, something new. The other thing, and I think Nuno was mentioning this, is that you need to be very, very realistic on each country. What can you do about it? Ultimately, like you mentioned so well, we're a small Portuguese SME. We landed in Bremen. Space is super cool, super sexy, but all the other, the guy in front of the road is the biggest player in Europe. What can I do? I'm not going to start a war on salaries. Most probably I'll go bankrupt by the end of the week. And I think that this realism is important. Just let me add something, for instance, for German companies. Did you know that actually the highest amount of foreign students in business and economics in Portugal, they're actually German? The guys doing their master's degrees, their Erasmus programs and all that, the largest share in Lisbon are actually German students. So this might be a source. But again, realism on the approach. And the final thing, I think was, and I pick up on what Miguel was saying and Pedro also mentioned, but Miguel probably summarized it. It's having a structured and long-term approach. With the structured and long-term approach, ultimately you reduce your problem of retention. Because if you think like that, that means that you're able to get into the talent's shoes and say, what are his desires, what are my desires, and how do these combine? And I think that's, at the end of the day, the source of success, to have happy people, motivated people, highly productive people that will stay along with you to make companies go further. So it was super interesting, especially for me, a learning opportunity. I think from what I heard, I can keep on selling Portuguese talent. I'll also sell German talent in Portugal, if you don't mind. And just to finish up, I would like to thank Robert for being here. And, you know, I really subscribe this, and I mentioned it at the beginning, but I'll say it again. Ultimately, we are in a joint economic environment, and this is a two-way street. So the better he does, the better I do, the better I do, the better he does. And this is how it works. So thank you so much, and it was great to listen from you guys. Thank you. Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you, Luis. Your last words are very, very true. And had you not said this, I would have said, you have to speak which is other, because the competitive advantages are not so clear anymore as they were 20 years ago. Now, they are segmented to specific tasks or specific sectors. And therefore, it makes every sense to cooperate between both of you and maybe other investment agencies to see what, and to help the companies where they find the best solution for this part of the production. No, and therefore, it makes sense invest in Portugal, it makes sense invest in Germany, and also in some other countries, maybe. No, we don't know yet. No. But,
for the moment, we're fine.
Yeah, okay. But I know in the very first hours here, the first 2 hours, we had already one company asking us at the German Chamber stand about Portugal to invest there. I don't know if there have been more, but I'm pretty sure there will be many during all these days. And this is very important. We probably are not contacted here to invest in Germany, but maybe back home. And to all the audience, the chamber, the German Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Lisbon and in other countries is there to help. In cooperation with GTI and with the ISAP people, and we have done this for many years and with a lot of success. So please, if you invest either in Portugal or Germany, we can help you. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you very much to all of you for your input. Ich glaube, das wird noch offiziell abmoderiert.
Test. This panel has come to an end. Thank you for coming. Please join us at our next conference tomorrow, May 31st at 9 a.m. on the topic of technological partnerships for success.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Pedro Rocha, and I am the Executive Director of Produtech. I will bring you today our perspective regarding a production technology cluster that is active in Portugal. But first, I would like to bring you back to some trends and some drivers that have changed the face of manufacturing. And for such, I bring you today a report from the World Manufacturing Forum that was published in 2018. And this report was somehow a premonition of what is today the face of manufacturing. In fact, in 2018, the World Manufacturing Forum identified 6 disruptive trends for the future of manufacturing. The first one was hyper-personalized manufacturing. And this was putting the focus on high customization and how the production processes should adapt to this high customization. The second one was circular manufacturing. And basically, the focus was on the need for the companies to put more focus in terms of resource efficiency, in terms of environment, and also in terms in the management of the life cycle of products. The third one regarded rapidly responsive manufacturing. The focus is on agility of production processes. A fourth one regarding inclusive manufacturing, and this was putting human resources at the center of the production systems because of the role they have in terms of innovation, and also putting the focus on the qualification of these human resources. Another driver was cognitive manufacturing. And basically, we can always today hear references how artificial intelligence is putting forward new advances in manufacturing. And the last one, in something that seemed to be very distant in the future, they have identified global risks resilient manufacturing. And basically, COVID pandemic proved us wrong because it was not a distant future. It was just right around the corner. And also, in 2018, Manufuture Platform, which is an European technological platform that gathers R&D stakeholders, gathers the industry to discuss what should be the vision for manufacturing in Europe, they put forward a vision for 2030. That the European industry should be a globally competitive, interconnected, and adaptive social technical value creation system that ensured sustainable growth and social welfare in a resource-constrained world. And for such, the Manufuture has clearly stated that Europe should lead in innovation ecosystem, should lead in key enabling technologies, should lead the digital transformation and the mastering of the complexity of products, and should have the leadership in resource efficiency and in sustainable development. And only by this way, Europe could be leader in resilience and adaptive manufacturing. And in 2020, with the COVID-19 pandemic on its outset, a renewed industrial policy was published with a focus on recovery, in reindustrialization, and in the resilience of the value chains, and of course putting the emphasis on competitiveness and in the twin transition, green and digital. And when we are talking about these twin transitions, and the industrial transformation, there is a key central role that is reserved to production technology industry. In fact, as suppliers of capital goods, of equipment, of softwares, industrial softwares, the production technology industry is providing the effective production capacity of the several manufacturing sectors, from aeronautics to automotive, from agro-food industry to household products. Production technologies emerge as the key element towards innovation and towards productivity. And this is somehow the context of why the production cluster was created. Basically, it is an articulated network of production technology stakeholders that are deploying advanced manufacturing solutions. And these stakeholders, they form a triangle. Suppliers of production technologies, R&D organizations, and of course, leading companies from the manufacturing industry. And the context of all this was that Portugal has a very strong industrial base with a diverse manufacturing fabric and comprising different sectors, from discrete process industries from discrete to process industries, that had a strong emphasis on innovation, flexibility, and responsiveness. And it also had production technology suppliers with strong engineering competences, and as we all heard during the day of today, talent. And there was, of course, a critical mass where all these companies, organizations, and end users had a tradition to cooperate in order to develop new solutions. But now, looking to some figures, production technologies industry, as I mentioned, is a diverse fabric, from producers of equipment to software to systems integrators. But when we look only to machine and equipment, we have 1,500 companies that gather 25,000 employees, a turnover of almost 3,000 million, and with almost 2.5 thousand million euros of exports. This is only machines and equipment. But if we look to what production technology is, we can say that it represents around 8 to 9% of the Portuguese manufacturing industry. And let's have a look of what is the exports from production technology in Portugal. That is data from 2020. In 2019 and in the previous years, the first country, the first customer was Germany. And as you can see, Spain, France, UK, USA are also very strong clients for the Portuguese production industry. When we look to the export markets with higher growth between 2009 and 2016, Germany was the first. And when we compare production technology companies from Portugal with the European average, what we see is that, okay, the average dimension is smaller, but in terms of investment rate, in terms of adjusted productivity, in terms of gross operating margin, it is almost 50% higher than the European average. And as said, it includes companies that develop process industry equipment, discrete industry solutions, also specialized and customized equipment, and for instance, machine vision solutions and, of course, software for the industry. And this makes the producers of production technology global, resilient, and reliable suppliers that provide advanced, customized, and turnkey solutions for the manufacturing industry. But the other node of the triangle were the R&D organizations. And in fact, we have as members virtually all the R&D organizations in Portugal that are active in advanced manufacturing. And this creates a network of world-class R&D organizations that are linked to international networks, that are leaders in industry-oriented R&D or European projects, and that are leveraging the development of advanced solutions. And of course, we also add on board the end users of production technologies, from automotive to household products. They are also on board on the clusters. And of course, as we have learned during the day of today, we had the perfect institutional environment with several organizations such as IASEP that is here today, but also other organizations like ANI, and a complete set of incentives towards R&D and innovation. And basically, as a cluster, we act in these 4 vectors, from promoting cooperation, qualification, to visibility and internationalization, and of course the promotion of R&D and innovation and strategic information and intelligence. And these are some examples. The first example that I bring here for you today is a large-scale R&D project gathering 24 partners that are deploying advanced production technologies to enable a more sustainable and circular manufacturing. The second example is Prototech Digital Innovation Hub, which is a network of 19 organizations from R&D world to academia to science park incubators and industrial sector-oriented technology centers that are supporting companies in their digital transformation, providing them services to test before we invest on those technologies, providing services in training and upskilling, and providing services in terms of support to find investors and support to find partners within this ecosystem. Additionally, we are also involved in other European projects. This one's regards to promote the use of robotic solutions, but adapted to the needs of the small and medium enterprises and adapted to the needs of small batches productions. This is a European project that gathers over 26 other digital innovation hubs across Europe. And of course, we are also interacting with other clusters in Europe in order to strengthen these relationships towards internationalization. PIMA Plus is a project that gathers clusters from photonics from France and Finland, gathers clusters from production technologies from Portugal and from Italy, and gathers other clusters from the metal in Sweden and the aeronautic from the Czech Republic. And the key objective here is to promote and to reinforce these relationships in order to put forward photonics-enabled advanced manufacturing solutions. And the last but not the least example that somehow shows the commitment of the industry and the commitment of the stakeholders, it is a strategic agenda that we have just submitted to the Portuguese government. It is an integrated action plan that goes from R&D to innovation, but also taking in consideration training, capacity building, and qualification, and of course, internationalization. This strategic agenda gathers a critical mass of over 100 organizations and an investment plan of 200 million euros. And basically, the key objective is to put forward 80 advanced production technology solutions that could change the offer and that could change the face of manufacturing. So it is all this institutional, it is all this cooperation between the stakeholders that puts the Portuguese production technology industry in a position where it is trusted by global brands and industrial value chains in the delivery of advanced production capacities that support agility, competitiveness, sustainability, and resilience. Thank you so much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Felipe Costa. I was given the opportunity to introduce you to Sinchtec, an emerging Portuguese site for cable landing stations and data centers. Very happy to be here at Hannover Messe and having this opportunity. I'm the CEO of ICEP Global Parks, which is a state-owned enterprise managing business parks in Portugal, namely business parks contiguous to harbor areas for heavy industry, harbor-related logistics, and now also IT&T. We have created this product, Sinchtec, in one of our business parks, located by the deep-water seaport of Sines, in southwest Portugal. At this business park, Sines Industrial and Logistics Zone, we host Sinchtec, which we believe benefits from the proximity to the harbor and all the conditions that the harbor offers for the laying of subsea cables and consequently the setting up of data centers. To give you a small introduction to what this Sines complex in southwest Portugal represents, it's obviously majorly based in logistics, as it's a business park contiguous to a big transoceanic port, with an area devoted to solid bulk, an area devoted to container terminals, an area devoted to energy terminals, petrochemical, chemical, a big petrochemical, chemical and refining sector inside the facilities, where we are now leading Portugal's energy transition with a pipeline of 12 billion euros investments, about half of that, 6 billion in green hydrogen and green ammonia projects, and the remaining 6 in electro-intensive, decarbonized and circular economy in the refinery and the petrochemical sector coming from this energy transition. And building up on that, we've been embarked in the concept of the double transition, and we've launched in End of 2019, we've launched a third area of business, Tech, for the landing of subsea cables, the area in blue in the north, and the setting up of data centers in the southernmost area of our complex. We believe we have a number of competitive advantages. One of them is that we have the optimal location to be the EU Atlantic Data Gateway. We are very close to the Lisbon International Airport. We have an abundant water supply, both of industrial usage water and seawater intake and rejection facilities. We have a high electricity intensity, and we can build extra voltage power lines. We can supply energy at 400 kV or above. Theoretically, we can do that at 150. We have a renewable energy community that's being set up with local suppliers from solar panel farms and wind farms that are supplying renewable electricity directly to these projects. We have the great conditions of connectivity. We have great interland connectivity provided by some of the major fiber optic companies in Portugal, and obviously we have the perfect seashore for landing subsea cables, both in terms of jurisdiction as being harbor jurisdiction, the morphology, and a lot of things that we've been working on. We've been working on a pre-license channel for the landing of subsea cables. Portugal is, as you know, a great place to live, and those who were here during the previous sessions already heard about Portuguese talent. The available of, namely, talent for IT is a big plus when considering Portugal. I'm going to dwell a little bit on disadvantages. Compared to the traditional data center locations, Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam, Paris, Sinj is a very low density area. The province where it stands in Alentejo maybe has about 700,000 people, but the size equivalent to Belgium. So there's not a lot of urban constraints. There's the possibility to set up big facilities. We provide government-owned land for scalability of data center projects. There's the possibility to allocate power from green source, and that's what the main players in tech demand now, that it's green energy from added capacity. And all these advantages, when compared to densely populated urban areas, I believe are very important, because in the densely populated urban areas, when you talk about the bigger and bigger data centers, you start having the problem of those competing with the resources available. Water, electricity, the practical impossibility of being extra high voltage power lines in places like Frankfurt or London. And so here we have it all, and we have it all within European Union jurisdiction. And that's going to be increasingly important when you talk about data centers, when you talk about cable landing stations. You need data centers, bigger and bigger data centers next to Europe's cable landing station hubs, because you need them to be within European Union jurisdiction. You need it because of EU regulation, but you also need it in terms of safety and security as you think of the next trends that are growing the demand for data centers. And those are obviously 5G, obviously Industry 4.0, but also things like Internet of Things, Internet of Moving Things, artificial intelligence, enhanced reality, augmented reality, and all those are going to pose increasing challenges in terms of security and safety, which are going to make European Union want the data centers located within European Union space. For the landing of subsea telecom cables, we have designated an area in the north of the port of Sinj, where the front hole is a protected area. We've worked on speeding the license. We now have one of the most competitive licensing processes for the landing of subsea cables by the Portuguese National Regulatory Authority for Telecom, the Portuguese Environmental Agency, the Portuguese Maritime Agency. They've all worked together to create a speedy process for the landing of subsea cables. There's a cable landing station that is an open access that can enhance our capability of being an interconnection point between the European Union, South America, Europe, North America, Middle East, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Asia. We currently have a lot of cable systems landing in southern Portugal, in the Lisbon metropolitan area and the port of Sines, which is basically the big port by the metropolitan area of Lisbon. And it's really becoming an interconnection point between North America, Northern Europe, South America, Africa. Portugal is becoming more and more that connection point, and we hope to be that connection point, but we hope to have more just than the cable landing stations and the inter-exchange points. We hope to build a data center hub on that. We hope that the cables that land do the split at the cable landing station that we already have, and that those cable landing promoters are going to build, and that we can build a true ecosystem of cable landing stations and data centers that will enable Portuguese, Iberian, and the European data economy. Our first showcase, and that's why we can call it a hub, because we have already a cable landing station and we have a big data center project. Our first cable landing station that is capable to autonomously accommodate 4 cables currently accommodates Elalink, the first direct high-capacity link between Europe and South America. This is particularly important in all aspects that we can look at it. It's so important for European policy that was inaugurated last summer jointly by the Portuguese Prime Minister and President von der Leyen from the European Commission. It's the first direct link with high capacity between Europe and South America, which is to say that it's not dependent from a route via North America, which would have also this disadvantage of creating double the distance and obviously double the time of the flow between Europe and South America. Its characteristics are already in tandem with the new characteristics. We're talking about 100 terabits per second in 4 fiber pairs. We're talking about a very high capacity, very low round-trip delay. Showcase number 2 is our first big data center project. It's a very big data center that wants to cater to hyperscalers such as Amazon Web Services, Meta, Google, or Microsoft, and that will be carbon-free and run entirely on added capacity of renewable electricity. This will be the biggest data center on renewable energy in Europe. We're 495 megawatts power. And phase 1, you see there the 15 megawatts of the Nest project. Phase 1 is currently being developed. We have a new cable under consideration, which is the Medusa submarine cable system that is already coming because we have the big data center project. So that's what we're hoping here, is to develop a hub where we have cable landing stations, where the cables split, and we can have data centers next to them, and then these data centers are obviously in turn going to attract more cable landing stations. Medusa submarine cable system is particularly important for us because it will provide us with a direct connection to Marseille, which is currently the biggest cable landing station in Southern Europe, and this will obviously greatly increase our connectivity. Obviously, our priority is to provide connectivity not only through Portugal, but to Portugal, and to make Portugal a center of cable landing stations and data centers, and then allow the country to be part of the digital transition. And we do that piggybacking on the energy transition that we're leading also in the Sines complex, because we know we're going to be able to provide all the renewable electricity available, but also we have all the processes of green electricity storage in place. This cable is basically the 5+5 that we're used to in the Mediterranean, plus Turkey. It's a very high capacity with 24 fiber pairs and 20 terabytes per second per fiber pair. We are to launch this in 2019, so it's quite a recent project, and we're very happy to already have a cable in place, like Link, have more cables coming, and having the big data center project. We brought together ourselves, obviously, as managers of the industrial and logistical part of the harbor complex of Sinj, with the municipality of Sinj to make sure we have the complete local support, even when we're talking about high consumption of electricity, high consumption of water. We have their agreement when we want to introduce the double usage of the seawater intake and rejection facilities that we have in place from the energy industry, and that can be used to the cooling of data centers and to offset some of the electricity consumption. And then obviously we have our two inaugural customers, Link with the Europe-South America Cable Landing Station, and Start Campus, Sinj Transatlantic Renewable and Technology Campus, the new 495 megawatt power green electricity data center, coming together with technology, talent, university, RD&D, from FCC, the Portuguese Foundation for Science and Technology, Sinj Tecnopolo, the local talent provider, and with the three main backbone or interland operators in Portugal, which are the ones described here. IP Telecom, belonging to the Road and Rail department of the Portuguese government, Ren Telecom, belonging to the electricity and gas TSO operator, and Fast Fiber, the main digital fiber operator. Thank you very much for your attention. We look forward to have you visit Sinj Tech, and we look forward to have German companies, data centers, Ocean Digital, Lenovo, Exchange Points, Equinix, Interexchange. We are looking forward to have them all visit us in Sinj, in southwest Portugal, and get acquainted with our offer as a hub of cable landing stations and data centers.